are hearing the audio distress call from the boat. That is the boat on which Nolan Wells went to Horn Island. Now, there have been a lot of different accounts about whether he was on the boat when he came back from Horn Island, when he was supposed to come back from Horn Island. He never came back from Horn Island. And you can clearly hear on that version, which we obtained from the Mississippi Department of Marine Research. They released it. It's not something off TikTok or Insta. And that's what you hear. Let me hear 184 one more time, please.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the work coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
Hey.
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
All right. So I want to be clear with this one thing, because I know you mentioned before. Is there any chance or any knowledge that you have that anybody deleted stuff from his phone?
Nolan was like a brother to me. Nolan lit up every room he walked in. 4th of July, everybody was out there. Nolan rode out on the Tracen, and then we had a Palm Beach, 18 Palm Beach. There was 4 guys on that. The rest of the group, which was ranged from maybe 10 to 15 or 16 people on my buddy's tide line.
Yeah, so y'all pretty much having a good. So you guys get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah. And
then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, Nolan was, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock, and Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie. Katie. And Katie, Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy. I was like just joking with him. And but anyway, Nolan, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving, obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and my buddy yelled for Nolan, get on the boat. We're leaving. The boat's having issues. And no, he didn't say that, but he was panicking. Nolan, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolan said, no, I'm staying out here. I'm going to ride in with somebody else. And it's not uncommon to hear, but it's not like my buddy asked him one time. My buddy asked Nolan multiple times to get on the boat. Nolan, get on the boat. Get on the boat. We're leaving. If you're coming, you got to come now. And Nolan made a decision to stay out on the island. And like he said,
how many people heard that?
At least 5. Everyone that was on our boat right there, because the Palm Beach had already left. My buddy went ahead and went home on the Palm Beach, and 3 guys on the way back. And Nolan wasn't the only person to ride out there with us and in with somebody else. We had multiple people in our group that rode out with us and rode in on someone else's boat. And that, like I said, that's not an uncommon thing to do, a lot of people do that. I could name probably 50 people out there that day that ran out with somebody and ran back in with somebody else. So, it's not like it's an uncommon thing, but it's not like we just left him there, or my friends just left him there. Nolan made a decision to stay on the island after my friends asked him multiple times and told him to get on the boat, and he decided to stay.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody that she heard people yelling
correct
for Nolan to get on it. Is that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking, and everybody's texting Katie, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, this is the last time I saw him, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when My buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat, and she was right there to see that Nolan decided not to.
There are moments in an investigation when a single interview changes the conversation, not because it solves the case, but because it challenges everything people thought they knew. That's exactly what's happening in the Nolan Wells investigation. Over the past several days, one of Nolan's closest friends has finally spoken publicly about what happened on Horn Island. At the same time, investigators continue reviewing the now viral Sea-Tow dispatch recording, a recording that millions of people believe contains clues about Nolan's final hours. Online, some people are calling it the biggest breakthrough yet. Others say it changes nothing. But before we examine either development, there's one claim that needs to be addressed immediately. Across YouTube and social media, headlines have claimed the FBI released a full statement that changes the direction of the investigation. That isn't what officials have publicly announced. What has been confirmed is that the FBI is assisting the Jackson County Sheriff's Office by helping review digital evidence and investigating threats made against people connected to the case. Local authorities remain the lead agency, and investigators have not announced a final conclusion about Nolan's death. That distinction matters, because this case has become one where rumors often travel much faster than facts. Let's start with the interview that's now generating national attention. For weeks, many of Nolan's friends stayed silent. While theories spread across social media, they largely avoided cameras, saying they feared for their safety after receiving threats and accusations online. Then one of Nolan's longtime friends, Tracen Shepard, decided to speak. Not to accuse anyone, not to point fingers, but to explain what he says actually happened that day. Shepard described Nolan as more than just a friend. He called him one of his best friends, someone who brought people together, someone he still thinks about every single day. In one emotional interview, Shepard admitted that he constantly replays that day in his mind. He said he wonders whether things would have been different if he hadn't left Horn Island when he did. "I beat myself up every night," he said, reflecting on the loss of his friend. Then he addressed one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the investigation, the viral video. For weeks, many viewers believed the clip showed Nolan arguing with someone shortly before he disappeared. Some even believed they heard Nolan demanding his phone back. But Shepard says that's not what happened. According to him, the voice heard shouting in that video is his, not Nolan's. He says he was involved in an argument with another man unrelated to Nolan, and insists Nolan wasn't the person yelling in the recording at all. If that's true, one of the most widely shared assumptions in the case changes immediately, because investigators now have two very different interpretations of the same moment. One based on how the video was initially interpreted. Another coming from someone who says he was actually there. Naturally, detectives aren't expected to accept either version without verification. Instead, they'll compare Shepard's interview with every other piece of evidence they've collected. That's how investigations move forward, not by believing the loudest voice, but by determining which account matches the facts. Shepard also responded to another question that has followed this case from the beginning. Why was Nolan's phone left behind? For Nolan's family, that question has always been difficult to understand. They've repeatedly said it would have been out of character for Nolan to voluntarily remain on Horn Island without his phone. But Shepard offered a different explanation. He said leaving phones on the boat was common among the group. According to him, there were around 15 phones sitting on the dashboard that day because everyone planned to spend their time swimming in salt water where phones could easily be damaged. He said very few photos or videos were taken because almost nobody carried their phone while they were in the water. That explanation doesn't answer every question, but it does provide investigators with another account they can compare against the evidence. Meanwhile, another development continues, attracting enormous attention. The dispatch audio. Released by authorities, The recording captures a frantic call made after the group's boat reportedly began taking on water while leaving Horn Island. The caller tells the dispatcher the boat is sinking. He asks for immediate assistance. When asked whether everyone aboard is safe, the caller replies that everyone is on board and in good health. Those words are clear. The background voices are not. Since the recording became public, millions of people have replayed it repeatedly. Some listeners believe they hear Nolan's name. Others claim someone asks, "Is he dead?" Some hear neither. Investigators have not publicly confirmed those interpretations. Instead, they continue comparing the recording with witness interviews, GPS records, and digital evidence. Because if the dispatch audio supports the timeline witnesses have described, it strengthens the investigation. But if it doesn't, it could raise entirely new questions. And that's exactly where this story takes another unexpected turn. Because investigators aren't just comparing what people said, they're comparing when they said it, and whether the digital evidence tells the very same story. For investigators, Tracen Shepard's interview didn't end the questions. If anything, it created a new set of them, because every statement made publicly now has to be measured against the evidence investigators have quietly collected over the past several weeks. And that's where this investigation becomes far more complicated than many people realize. Shepard says Nolan wasn't involved in the argument shown in the now viral video. He says the shouting was his own. He also says leaving phones behind wasn't unusual because nearly everyone planned to spend the day swimming. On the surface, those explanations may seem straightforward, but detectives don't simply accept explanations. They verify them. That's why investigators are comparing every interview with GPS records, cell phone data, dispatch audio, photographs, and every available digital record collected during the investigation. Because memories can change. Evidence usually doesn't. Then there's another question that's continued to divide public opinion. If Nolan intended to stay behind voluntarily, why have there been differing public accounts about his plans that afternoon? Earlier in the investigation, statements attributed to Katie McCormack through members of her family suggested Nolan intended to return to his original group before they left Horn Island. Some of Nolan's friends have publicly described those moments differently. Investigators have not publicly announced which account is supported by the complete body of evidence. That makes the timeline one of the most important parts of the entire investigation. Not because someone necessarily lied, but because people often remember stressful events differently. Detectives know that. That's why they don't rely on memory alone. Instead, they begin comparing witness statements against electronic evidence. GPS records can establish where the boat traveled. Cell phone records may help determine when devices were active. Photographs and videos provide timestamps. And the dispatch recording captures a documented moment investigators can compare against everything else. Speaking of the dispatch recording, the moment authorities released the sea tow call, millions of people immediately focused on the background voices. Enhanced clips spread across YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and countless podcasts. Some listeners insisted they heard Nolan's name. Others believed someone asked, "Is he dead?" Within days, those interpretations had spread around the world. But professional forensic audio specialists have urged people to slow down. They explain that compressed recordings, overlapping voices, engine noise, wind, and AI enhancement software can all influence what listeners believe they're hearing. That's why investigators examine the original recording, not edited clips shared online. As of today, authorities have not publicly identified the background voices or announced that the recording changes the official timeline of the investigation. Instead, detectives are asking a different question. Does the recording fit with everything else? If witness statements say the boat left at a certain time, does the GPS agree? If someone recalls a particular conversation, does cell phone activity support that memory? If the dispatch call occurred at a specific moment, does every other piece of evidence place the people involved where they were expected to be? That's how complex investigations move forward, one fact at a time. Meanwhile, Nolan's family continues asking investigators to leave no question unanswered. Through attorney Ben Crump, they've consistently called for every witness statement, every digital record, and every forensic finding to be thoroughly examined before any final conclusions are reached. That request has become even more important as public attention continues growing. Because every new interview, every newly released document, every recording, and every rumor has the potential to influence how people view this case. Investigators know they can't allow that to happen. They have to separate facts from assumptions, evidence from speculation, and documented findings from theories shared online. That's why, despite everything that's been said publicly, detectives remain focused on one thing: building a timeline that can be supported by evidence, not emotion. And according to people close to the investigation, one final stage of that process could soon become the most important development yet. Because once prosecutors review everything investigators have gathered, the direction of this case may become much clearer. As investigators continue assembling the timeline, one thing has become increasingly clear. The Nolan Wells investigation is no longer about a single witness. It's no longer about one viral video. And it's no longer about one emergency dispatch call. It's about whether every piece of evidence tells the same story. That's the challenge detectives now face. Tracen Shepard has publicly explained his version of events. Other witnesses have shared their own accounts. Katie McCormack's reported recollection has also become part of the public conversation. Each person remembers the day differently, and that's exactly why investigators don't rely on memory alone. They compare every statement against evidence that doesn't change: GPS records, cell phone data, timestamps, photographs, videos, the dispatch recording. Every one of those pieces becomes another checkpoint in the timeline. If they all point in the same direction, investigators move forward with confidence. If they don't, the questions begin all over again. That's why prosecutors have repeatedly remained careful about discussing the investigation publicly. Many people have asked why authorities haven't released every interview, why they haven't published every forensic finding, why they haven't responded to every rumor spreading online. The answer is simple: because investigators aren't trying to win a debate on social media. They're trying to build a case that can withstand scrutiny in court. And that requires patience. It also requires silence. Releasing too much information too early could influence future witness testimony, affect potential legal proceedings, or reveal investigative details that detectives are still working to verify. For Nolan's family, however, every day without answers has been another painful reminder of what they're still waiting for. Through attorney Ben Crump, they've consistently called for investigators to examine every available piece of evidence before reaching any final conclusion. Not just the dispatch audio, not just witness interviews, everything. That includes digital evidence, GPS records, forensic findings, and every statement made before and after Nolan disappeared. Meanwhile, Nolan's friends continue maintaining that they had nothing to do with his death. Several have publicly denied rumors circulating online and have said they have fully cooperated with investigators. Some have also spoken about the threats their families have received since the case gained national attention. Those statements don't determine what happened. Neither do the accusations made online. Only the evidence can do that. And perhaps that's why this investigation has captured so much attention across the country. Every new interview seems to answer one question, while raising two more. The dispatch recording raises questions about the timeline. Witness statements raise questions about Nolan's final movements. Digital evidence may answer some of those questions or introduce entirely new ones. At this stage, investigators haven't publicly announced a final theory explaining Nolan's death. They haven't identified the background voices heard in the dispatch audio, and they haven't publicly stated that any single witness account has been confirmed as completely accurate. Instead, they continue doing what investigators have done from the beginning. Following the evidence. One document. One interview. One forensic finding at a time. Eventually, prosecutors will decide whether the available evidence supports further legal action. Until then, the investigation remains active. And many of the answers the public has been searching for remain known only to the investigators reviewing the complete case file. For now, one thing is certain. The truth about what happened to Nolan Wells won't come from rumors. It won't come from edited videos. And it won't come from viral headlines. It will come from the evidence. And as more verified information becomes public, we'll continue following this case carefully, separating confirmed facts from speculation every step of the way. If you've followed the Nolan Wells investigation from the beginning, we'd like to hear from you. Based only on the confirmed evidence discussed in this documentary, what do you believe investigators should focus on next? The dispatch audio, the GPS timeline, the digital evidence, or the witness statements? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. And if you appreciate evidence-based true crime documentaries, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future updates as this investigation continues.